That's right, Barry. Only moments ago, we have received word that Sierra Tolomine has stepped into the role of governor during this time of turmoil and unrest. The voices were vibrant, excited. They were the opposite of everything I was feeling as we sat listening to the news over the speakers built into the penthouse walls. Despite everything, the support she's garnered from the community has been overwhelming, and it's times like this I'm proud to call this city home. That is something we can definitely agree on, Barry. She has more than earned the people's support and trust. I felt sick. I felt exhausted. I felt overwhelmed. This is not good, is it? Hercule asked. Fia shook her head. We can't even ask Rio for help now, can we? I flopped back onto the couch, feeling utterly defeated. Already. No. But I thought you two were above the law. Taking out threats like her? That's your whole shtick. Hercule rubbed his eyes with his huge metal fingers. Technically, yes, but to get the department to back us up on something like this, we need some solid evidence first. Not just the word of a gangster and Ulf's hunch. They would have to start an investigation. It might take months, if not years. She'd bury any evidence long before they could find it. And what if we just... Reva lifted her hand to her temple, miming a gun and dropping the hammer. You know, first. It would be easier to ask for forgiveness than permission, I said sullenly. And it will be easier to find proof once she's dead. The department can freely rifle through her stuff, Fia confirmed. Reva was right. This was what I was employed for. It's just, I had never had a target so high profile before. I closed my eyes and groaned. Rio would back us up too, on a personal level, but she plays by the book. If I call this in, all official like, she'll have to report it, pass it up the chain. Sierra will find out. Hercule grunted in agreement. My handler will do the same. Darcy needs her job. She won't risk it just for me. And the book? Reva asked hopefully. I hadn't really talked about my encounter with my father with any of them yet, except Fia. We had a long chat, but it was more about the fact that our father was kind of still alive. It had come as a shock to her, though her first words on the topic were, fucking typical. It's dangerous. Dad said it's cancer. I don't really know why. But I don't think I should count on it. Is there no one we can ask to have a look at it? To decipher it? Hercule asked. I shook my head. What about Tobias? Fia offered. I paused. I hadn't really considered him. Then I remembered why I hadn't considered him. Who's Tobias? Reva asked carefully, seeing the expression on my face. He's a bookshop owner, and an expert at magical texts. And he's a cipher, Fia interjected. I grimaced. Of sorts. But no, and I don't have time for all the apologizing and ass-kissing I'd need to do. Besides, that shop of his creeps me out. So we're alone then, Hercule said, slumping back into the couch. I nodded. Fia sighed. Just four of us and a unhinged AI against the most influential and connected person in the state. Hercule took a deep breath and let it out in a huff. I was getting bored of living anyway. That was last night, back when we had no plan. This morning, though, we definitely had a plan. Oh, who am I kidding? We had jack shit, but sometimes the direct approach is the best approach. We got as far as knock on the front door. Well, that wasn't entirely true. We had managed to scrape some intel together. We knew she was going to be in our apartments tonight. Her movements were very brief between Government House and her apartment. Trying to attack her at her new offices was not possible, for a huge list of reasons. Confronting her en route or arriving or departing, we risked her fleeing. Our only option was to take her when she was at home. None of us liked the idea of fighting her on home ground, but we did have some advantages. Firstly, Fia had left a backdoor into her system last time she had gotten in. There was every chance once we were in, we would be noticed, but at least we could get the edge before kicking in the door. So yeah, the plan was still walk in and start busting heads until we get to the top, just with a few extra steps. Oh, and I was planning to hand over the keys to the building to Eve. We had struck a deal. I get her in, she gets to wreck shop. I get the kill. Some people might have qualms about kicking in the door to a building and starting to shoot the place up. Some people might decide to offer the security a chance to walk away, give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm not some people. You sign on to be private security for the corps, you know exactly what you signed up for. Besides, after being used, manipulated, mutilated, and generally fucked around, I wasn't in the mood to be handing out second chances. We had one shot at this. If we failed tonight, it would be game over. There was no trying again. Tonight, it was us or them. I want to make this exceedingly clear. None of you have to follow me tonight. Fear sneered. Reva rolled her eyes, and Hercule raised his hand like he was a child in a classroom. Yes? Do you actually think you could take her and her entire security team on your own? Well, no, but I don't like our chances anyway, so... Fear snorted a laugh. Great pep talk, bro. Yeah, that's what I thought. Hercule shrugged. I'll stay the course if it's all the same to you. You're gonna need all the help you can get. Besides, it's my job, remember? I appreciated that, and he was right, it was his job, actually. Still, there's a good chance that we could all die tonight, with the possible exception of Fear. Fear, who had always been my backup on the end of a comms line, had chosen to accompany us. Not to join in on the carnage, but to jack Eve into the system, turn off as much of the security as possible. She was going to be our tech hotline, but this time she would be in the field. It wasn't that I didn't think she could handle herself, I knew she could. But if I was honest, I didn't trust her not to eat us. Last time had been too close for call, and we didn't have a vial of that nice clarity of mind this time. At least, if she got found and decided to go all medieval on their asses, we would be a safe distance away by then. Hopefully. I did need someone to hack all the systems though, regardless. I couldn't afford to waste the precious time of doing it myself. So that's it. Am I the only one who thinks maybe we should just loose fangs and claws here into the penthouse and upload the crazy AI, then call it a day? Fear gave him a look so cold you could have chilled beer if it had been in her field of view. I laid a hand on her shoulder. No. Firstly, Fear can't really direct herself. It would be carnage, but that's all it would be. Sierra would throw her goons at her and keep her busy while she got away. Secondly, without some supervision, I don't trust that AI as far as I could kick it. I looked down at the small black box, which is probably a decent distance now I come to think of it. I shook my head. Anyway, the point is, we need precision and efficiency. Best case, Shaky hasn't said anything and we can take them by surprise. Worst case, they're expecting us. Either way, I don't want to be taking gambles on chaos. I do kind of like the idea of eating that smug face of hers, though, Fear muttered. Tell you what, if we die, you can take a crack at her. How's that sound? Reva offered. Fear grinned, her incisors noticeably lengthening. Delicious. We spent the next couple of hours kidding ourselves out. I felt woefully underarmed, but there was only so much we could actually take with us. You could only carry so many guns and not rattle when you walk. Besides, we needed stealth, to a point. We went over the plan again and again, tweaking it, trying to second guess every potential eventuality, for what it was worth. What's the saying? The best plan only lasts until you make contact with the enemy? And I knew the truth of that all too well. And I hadn't even gotten to the best part yet. Our entry strategy. It was slow going in the tunnels. We had to blank any sensors that were in our area. Until we got into the building, the invasive hacks were in my hands. I went ahead of the team, my Cyphers sight picking out anything that would give us any trouble and knocking them out in such a way that wouldn't draw attention to our passing. The only one of us that was having trouble was Hercule. Who are these tunnels made for? Goblins? He complained as he squeezed past a series of pipes protruding from the ceiling. At least you're not having to lug a heap of shit with you, Fear grumbled behind him. He craned his neck to look back at her. Hey, I offered. You barely fit. How were you planning on carrying all my kit? She held up the 2 duffel bags. Determination and good intentions? I rolled my eyes. Quiet. We're almost there. I tried to look up through the layers of concrete and cables to see if anyone was guarding the service hatch above. There was a long ladder and the hatch at the other end. As far as I could see, it was all clear. We ascended, glad to be out of the damp and stuffy depths of the concrete labyrinth. We had been lucky that Fia had found this entrance. Most of this block was a good distance from the areas of the city that had been damaged, and a lot of the service tunnels for the buildings in this area were on a closed loop, but some of them had been broken into to allow workers to adapt the grid temporarily and make repairs to the sites of the bombings, rerouting power and water from the rest of the city through undamaged areas. The irony was not lost on me. I gently eased the hatch open after overriding the electromagnetic lock. The room above was indeed clear. We emerged hot, sweaty, and dirty. Fia began to unpack her gear immediately, unfolding screen arrays and hooking in cables. The only major plus side to Fia being our person on the inside was that no one could attack her personally over the network. She used external kit exclusively. Worst they could do was fry her computer. The walls of this basement were an invader's dream. All the network cables routed through here, all the switchboards, everything she needed was at her fingertips. She pulled out some tools and began to hardwire her kit into the building. Alright, it's a certainty that the higher floors will have their own systems that may be able to be self-supporting if we go into lockdown. I addressed Reva and Hercule as we checked over our weapons. Once they go solo, and they will, Fia will probably be of little help to us. While she stays here, she's our escape channel. They nodded, letting me repeat myself for the 8th time. If you need to bail, she'll do her best to leave you openings. If she gets discovered, I looked at her and gave her a weak smile. We pray she doesn't decide to come looking for us. Don't worry, she said with mock joviality. I'm sure everything will go exactly as planned. I patted down my pockets and pouches. We'd kitted ourselves out with a mixture of our own clothes and some TAC-Ops stuff I'd pilfered years ago. My hand fell on one reassuring rectangular lump in a pouch on my belt next to my sword. Everyone link in. We all linked up to the same comms channel. Fia had visuals, from us and the cameras on the ground floor all the way up to the last one below the penthouse. It was just as I expected. Once we hit that floor, we were on our own. Well, here goes everything. We moved out, slinking to the best of our ability, like shadows through the lower levels of the building. Our goal was to make it to the elevator shafts and scale our way up the inside of the shafts from there. That would take us almost all the way to the top. Unfortunately, the elevators that went that high started at the foyer. That was our first target. Fia guided us, telling us when to halt and when to take a different route due to security. This was the easy part. Down here, there was almost no one. Down here, no one cared enough to pay attention. Fia just needed to create image loops on the security cameras, just a few seconds as we passed by. It was from the foyer up that we would have issues. I held my pistol low in front of me as I led the way, raising it to sweep my gaze over areas before proceeding. I overrode another lock and pushed a door open. That door opened up into the garage level. I paused as Fia checked all the feeds. We just moved our way up through 3 basement levels with no altercations. If we were going to start meeting any opposition, it would be here. You have one way up, the elevator at the west end, Fia spoke up over the comm. We all dropped low, moving behind cars and sticking to the wall. Ah, crap, it's covered. I stopped short. With what? 2 guards, 2 autocannons in the ceiling. I let out a tense breath. We couldn't afford to give ourselves away this early. We needed to stay in cover. I can take care of the lackeys. Can you shut down the guns? I could hear her typing furiously. I got you. Okay, so this is where I found out if all that reprogramming I'd done in my own head was going to pay off. When we move, you'll need to open the doors. Can do. We moved along the wall, not rushing, not wanting to give ourselves away. I signaled to Reva and Hercule to halt and lay low. I crawled forward, eyes on my targets, trying to keep close for a clean connection. They were 2 elves, and glory be, they were heavily modified. Techno-organic skin stretched over armor plating. They had replaced their torsos and limbs. Each one carried an extendable shock staff and was equipped with a retractable 9mm firearm augment. If this worked, they wouldn't get a chance to use them. I calmed my thoughts, focused, and reached out and touched their minds. Yellow light encircled my wrists, spinning slowly. Getting inside their heads was easy. It was what I intended to do once I was in there. I could burn them, I could shut them down, I could do many things to fuck them up, but we wanted to pass unnoticed. I visualized my hands on their shoulders. I could picture myself, my whispering in their ears. My voice was low as I spoke the words that I was passing directly into their minds. You're tired. I could see both their lips move the slightest bit, mimicking my words. They work you so hard, you deserve a rest. A barely perceptible nod. Just close your eyes. Their eyelids fluttered. Just lean back. What harm would 5 minutes do? Sweat rolled down my forehead, dripping onto the grey concrete floor as I exerted my will. I would never have been able to do this before, not without contact. Hell, I wasn't even sure I could do it now. Unconsciously, my hand rested on one pouch on my belt in particular. My eyes stung as I focused my sight, unblinking and straining my magical senses. Just take 5, I whispered. Close your eyes, it's all okay. The one to the left tilted backwards and rested against the wall, his eyes slowly dropping closed. The other one was fighting it though. He blinked like a toddler, refusing to admit they were overtired. Just take 5. He pivoted slightly, leant sideways, and dropped into sleep. They were out cold. I raised a hand and Reaver and Hercule advanced. I got to my feet, wiping sweat from my face and jogging over to the elevator door. The door slid open as we closed in and we filed inside. I paused for half a second to inspect my handiwork. They were asleep. I had maintained my connection. Their heart rates were slow. It would only last until I dropped the connection though. I would try and hold it until we got to the next floor. The doors slid shut behind me and I let out a breath. Reaver put an arm around me. Good work, baby. We passed out of sight and sound, and I dropped the connection. I didn't know you could do that, Hercule said, and I could hear a hint of something in his voice. Admiration? Or wariness? I didn't know if I could either. With any luck, they'll be too embarrassed to mention it to anyone. There was a polite ding as the elevator had passed the other 2 parking lots and stopped at the foyer. This is where the fun begins, Fia chimed in over the comm. We flowed out of the elevator, guns up and ready, moving into the polished shiny foyer. Marble tiles and gold-plated trim, green velvet on the chairs and polished timber counters. I wasn't usually impressed by that sort of thing, but I really hoped we didn't have to shoot the place up. It would be such a shame. We've got incoming. Fia's voice was urgent. I glanced around. I couldn't hear anything. I couldn't see anything. What? Where? The 3 of us dropped low, sliding into cover behind one of the polished counters. I swapped to my other side and scanned the area. Even though a part of me had expected it, my heart sank when I saw the shape of a small and familiar figure advancing around the corner from the bar. The smug son of a bitch was puffing on a cigar while he took his sweet-ass time. He walked to the middle of the foyer and stopped, blowing out a smoke ring and watching it dissipate before speaking out. I know you're here, boyo. Might as well come out. I held a hand low, signaling to Reaver and Hercule to stay put. Then slowly got to my feet from behind the counter. Shaky noticed me after about a second and smiled. There you are. How'd you know? He shrugged and blew another smoke ring. So, how's this going to go then? I asked, not moving from my position. He looked down at his cigar as if he was inspecting it for defects. The way I see it, you and I sort this out right here and now. Or you could walk out that door and we never mention it again. I looked up at the floors above us to where I assumed my target was. You haven't told her, have you? He didn't confirm or deny. I'm giving you a chance, boyo. I don't want to do this the hard way. This is what I was afraid of. Shaky wasn't exactly a friend, but I'd known him for years. He'd always been good to me, and I'd never thrown him under the bus. You could just Let us pass by, I suggested. He frowned.
Sorry, kid, not an option.
I nodded. So you've chosen a side then?
I've survived by taking opportunities, betting on winners. I'll be honest, she's a pretty safe bet. You have no idea what she's capable of.
He took another long draw on the cigar.
She can offer me a lot.
I'm gonna kill her, I said flatly. Last chance. My grip tightened on my pistol. He stared down at his cigar and sighed.
I won't be going easy on you.
I wouldn't expect you to. His arm hissed and split in half as the katana blade slid free and began to glow a cherry red. I reached down and unhooked my sword. The soft sound of the well-oiled metal sliding over metal as my blade extended. He raised an eyebrow and snapped his fingers. The entrance to the foyer from the street opened up and a dozen big orcs strolled in, all dressed in some amalgamation of cheap army surplus gear and leather, each gripping a carbine. Two of them pulled a huge metal crate on wheels. Shaky pointed at my sword.
That all you got?
There was a rush of air from behind the counter. In a blink of an eye, 4 orcs were tumbling to the floor, throats slit, gripping their necks as blood poured from between their fingers. I had to give it to her. My girl knew how to make an entrance. She shimmered back into normal time beside me, panting and holding a bowie knife that was oddly clean of blood. The crew of orcs rushed forward, guns coming up, leveling them at Reva. She vanished again. Hercule stood up from his hiding spot behind the counter, his huge integrated cannon already deployed. 3 shots in rapid succession took down another 3 of the big guys and the rest dove for cover. Shaky was closing in on me fast. I could have run the Hermes. I could have, but I needed every edge for when I faced Sierra. I was going to have to do this the old-fashioned way. His sword lashed out at my legs and I jumped back. I could feel the radiant heat from the blade. If anything had landed on me, it would slice right through flesh, bone, and steel. My sword, though, was no ordinary metal. I parried and deflected blow after blow, swinging low, thrusting, slashing, riposting. We sparred back and forth like duelists of old. All around us, carnage reigned. Shots were going wide, wrecking the beautiful and expensive furniture as the orcs tried to trace Reva. They weren't dumb enough to try and take me out while I was entangled with Shaky, though, and Hercule was laying down some fierce cover fire. Shaky was fast, faster than anyone should have been without cybernetics to assist. But I knew he had been intimidating, a vicious fighter in his youth, before he had become the mob boss I knew now. It was all I could do to keep up with him. A spark from his other hand and my eyes went wide. He snarled and let out a war cry. His offhand came around trailing fire. I threw myself to one side and rolled to try and avoid the lance of flame. I vaulted a short dividing wall into the lounge space. I could hear him laughing. Fine. I pulled up menus and code, running invasive programs as fast as I could. I wasn't going for his NPU, that would take too long, and I knew it would be too well defended. But his arm, just maybe.
Can't stand the heat. Stay out of the kitchen,
he taunted, fire abating for a moment. I grinned as I found what I had been chasing. If you say so. I stayed low, ran along behind the wall and dropped to slide over the polished tiles, opening myself up, baiting him. It worked. He raised his hand, a spark, the start of a flame, and then... The explosion wasn't big, but it was intense. Shaky screamed out in pain and shock. He was thrown back. His hand, his whole forearm was just gone. A charred and blackened stump remained. I took the opportunity to look for the others. Hercule had emerged from behind his hiding place, and his massive blade was extended from his forearm. He was locked in a fight with 2 other orcs, their carbines discarded or empty. He avoided a machete in the hands of one just to grab the other by the neck and drive his blade into its gut. Reva was holding off the other 2. She moved like a dancer compared to their slow yet powerful strikes. She had been disarmed of her knife and gun. She didn't need them. I ran for Shaky, my sword up, my gun out. I sighted on him and pulled the trigger. What I hadn't been paying attention to was the big metal crate. Thinking back, I probably should have scanned it when I had the chance. Shaky saw me advancing and even in his injured state managed to move in time, my shots taking chunks out of the marble tiles where he'd lay. He was running for the crate. I looked from him to his destination and saw it opening up. The sides splitting apart, pressurized air escaping as they fell to the ground, and an immense black suit of armor that was all too familiar stood up. It had been modified. The head was missing for one thing, the body now open to show a small cockpit. It dropped to one knee and Shaky jumped, launching himself to land on the knee, pivoting and falling backwards, landing on the seat inside. I saw the smile on his now sooty and bloody face as the chest panels closed over him, sealing him in the titan of steel and firepower. Fia, we have a big problem. I ran for cover again. The right arm of the suit was lifting. What had once been a hand was now replaced with a goddamn Gatling gun. The sound of that kind of weapon dropping thousands of rounds a minute, tearing apart anything that stands in its way, was not a sound you missed being on the receiving end of. The other combatants may not have been paying attention to us before, but they sure as hell were now. "What the shit is that thing?" Fia asked, shocked. That would be a converted troll exosuit. I scanned it from the cover of a fallen benchtop. It was indeed heavily modified. He had swapped one arm for the gun, and the other now had the electroshock axe integrated. He had shored up the systems too. The opening I had found last time wasn't there this time. This was some bespoke programming. It almost felt like,
"You won't be getting in here in a hurry,"
Shaky's voice said, as the gun wound down for a moment.
"I've had this thing designed especially to keep you out."
All of a sudden, all the doors in the area threw their magnetic locks shut or dropped security panels, including the elevators. Ah, crap. If Shaky hadn't told her before, she knew we were here now. We were running out of time. "Reaver, Hercule, come in!" I couldn't see any of them from my hiding place. The gun spun back to life and tore a line of carnage across the thick stone top I was hiding behind.
"What the hell is that thing?"
Hercule asked, breathing heavily. "That would be a problem," Reaver put in. "Where are you?" I asked, risking a look over the top of the stone and edging towards a large marble pillar.
"In the bar,"
Hercule replied. I heard the clink of glass over his comm as he spoke. "Are you drinking?" There was the sound of gulping and a polite burp.
"Yep, 12-year-old Scotch."
I rolled my eyes. "Reaver?" "I'm here, baby. Behind the front desk. He doesn't seem too interested in the rest of us, does he?" Her point was punctuated by the burst of fire that tracked me as I lunged for the nearest pillar. "Well, aren't I special? Anyone else out there?" "Negative," Fia said over the comm. "All the other opposition is down." Her watchful eyes on the security cameras. "How are we meant to get close to that thing?" Reaver asked. "He's got to run out of ammo eventually, right?" I took a breath and closed my eyes. We'll close in all at once from different directions, move fast and erratic. Keep him on his toes until we get close. We all burst from cover at the same time. Shaky brought his gun to bear on me first, unloading red-hot lead. I couldn't make it more than a couple of meters before I had to throw myself into cover again. Reaver actually got up close and closed the gap, but there was nothing she could do, emptying an entire clip at the armor. Shaky twisted his position. A huge foot came up, connecting with her chest and kicking her across the room. Hercule closed in on the other side, catching the gun as it swung to aim at him. He shook as he halted its movement and pushed back. The strain of the internal motors were audible until the electro-axe slashed sideways. His armor-plated arms blocking the blow aimed at his chest, but driving him back. He lost his grip on the gun. Too late, he saw the barrel spin to life and open fire. "No!" I cried out, foregoing my cover to draw Shaky's attention. It worked. He turned, not passing up a chance to gun me down. I ran, barely keeping ahead of the gunfire, giving Hercule a chance to get to cover. The suit was powerful, but it wasn't quick, and I was able to keep ahead. I could see Hercule. One of his legs was trailing blood. One arm hung at his side, sparking. I made it to Reaver's hiding spot and huddled down beside her. "You okay?" She nodded. Her breathing was short. She gripped her side and winced in pain. "Broken ribs, I think. I'll be fine." I tried to help her into a sitting position and she grunted in pain. She reached into a pouch on her belt for a combat stim to dull the pain. She would pay for it later, though. "We can't take him. He's too well armored." "You can't hack him?" Fia asked in my ear. I shook my head. Not that she could see. Not in the time we have. He's tailored that suit to keep me out. I could hear her typing. Okay, I've got this. Rounds blew chunks out of the wall above us. A thought occurred to me. You're not releasing Eve already, are you? There was no reply. Fia, don't release Eve yet. Shit! Plaster and brick rained down on us, and we shuffled deeper into cover. Shaky didn't seem to be in a rush to come find us. He knew he had the upper hand.
I'm sorry about this, Ulf,
the goblin said over the speakers in the suit.
I really like you, I do, boyo, but business is business.
I'll try not to hold it against you then, when I slice you out of that tin can and cut off your other arm.
You could just have let it go. You could have walked away.
You know I'm not capable of that, mate. He sighed.
You had so much potential. I'm gonna miss you, kid.
I'd say the same for you, but honestly, I'm feeling a bit betrayed here. He chuckled, and I could hear the gun widening back into life.
If you come out now, your girl and the big guy can walk away.
You'll forgive me if I don't take your word for that.
It's just you I need, boyo. Don't worry, I'll make it real quick.
I won't.
Thank you for listening to Cyphers Edge. Subscribe so as not to miss future episodes. New episodes uploaded every second Saturday. Script and narration by JJ Brandis. Music was provided by Cale McLeish. Copyright JJ Brandis 2025.